Welcome, Shade, to the Give and Receive podcast. To begin, who is Shade, and what have you learned to know truthfully about yourself?
Shade is a name that I chose to represent the fundamental aspect of myself as a human being, because we all have our different quirks, our different essences, likes, dislikes, things like that. And truthfully, I like to try a bit of everything, especially in art. I like pyrography, which is like using fire against wood, or a chisel, paint, stencil, things of that nature. Shade is just a name that I chose to give myself. And I guess that's something I learned that's truthful about myself, is the fact that I like the variety of things in life, trying different things.
Random question. What cool things have you tried out recently?
Recently, a painting kind of, I spray painted a board, and I don't have any blue spray paint. So what I did was I took normal blue paint and air duster to see if I could kind of blow the blue onto a surface. And it's not working quite like I want it to, but the effect that it's going to have on the final product will be pretty cool. So that's something new I've tried.
Is it fun?
Yeah, I really like enjoying, I really enjoy different art mediums and exploring different aspects of that.
What is esotericism?
Esotericism in itself is just knowledge that's not really publicly known to a lot of people. It's more than the surface level aspect. If you think of it in terms of parables, like you could just say a parable and people will be like, okay, if you think about the parable, it means something specific to you. You can think of Noah's Ark. You can take it quite literally, where there's a guy named Noah and he takes two of every animal and he's on the sea, the deluge, and he saves humanity. Or you can think of it as a man trying to calm his animal instincts among a raging storm and trying to keep everything together in order to save himself along with humanity and a broader spectrum. Esotericism to me is looking deeper than just surface level things. I mean, it could be one or the other with anything, but if you look deeper into things, it gives it more spice to it that I really enjoy.
What got you into esotericism?
I grew up Lutheran and I was an acolyte, and I noticed that a lot of things that we did was pretty much an initiation to, we learned different things like candles have, the color of candles have different meanings depending on, you know, what you're using them for. Like if we were saying prayers over a list of people that and the congregation that were sick, we would light blue candles and say our prayers. And but normally the candles were white. Of course, during Lent, we would have like a purple candles. It kind of got me thinking about, the deeper meanings of everyday things that we do. Like when we tied our robes, we had to do 3 loops, and we were always told we did 3 loops because the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. So it brought like a different meaning to it, and I just explored that with different aspects of life. Like, what else does this mean? And it gets really interesting when you look at life and the lens of esotericism. So that really is what got me into it. It's just, it made life interesting.
Do you believe that it is relevant in regards to today's societal and cultural trends? Why or why not?
I think it's paramount. If we take everything we learn as surface on the surface, I mean, there's really nothing new to explore. There's nothing new under the sun, as they say. But really, what makes us an individual is how we perceive things, our perception of the human experience. So I think it's always relevant.
How has symbolism shaped the way that we as a collective view worldly and or popular concepts?
A lot of things get rather glorified or demonized just by symbols because symbols can invoke a sense emotions and then that evokes people to act upon those emotions. Yeah, symbolism in today's society is just, I mean, we stand on the shoulders of giants. We everything from the past up to the present has led us here through symbols, through parables, through the unknown, and we try to seek meaning through that, and that has always it leads up to more, and that's exactly why we're in the state that we're in today is because of how people perceive things, and that ties into esotericism, how people see things, how they want to interpret things deep down. If it strikes a chord with you and resonates with you strongly enough, you'll act upon it. And you see that a lot today with people going out and helping others through charity, or you see it with war. It's whatever you feel called to and what you want, kind of subconsciously, what struck you to be who you are and to act the way that you do. And it could be for the betterment or, it's the detriment.
What have we as a collective perhaps demonized as quote bad unquote, quote evil unquote, or etc. in regards to esoteric symbols?
We can do the Seal of Lucifer because that one's pretty quick. The Seal of Lucifer is a symbol that originates in the Grimorium Verum, which means the true grimoire. I don't remember the publishing date, and I probably should have written that down, but it's pretty old. But it stands for independence, freedom, light, power, existence, basically all things that are within the realms of human potential. The main part is looks kind of like a chalice. What you hold in a chalice is liquid water. It can be seen as wisdom. It's a cup that holds all the potential that we as humans have. It's wisdom, connection to the divine, and then you have the X through it. The X symbolizes power. We have the power to connect to the divine through our human potential. And then at the bottom, you see a slight V, a connection of a V. And that is two opposites connecting. So you have the male and female, masculine and feminine coming together as one. And Lucifer quite literally means the light bearer, morning star, and it was never meant to be Satan. It was actually a mistranslation from the Vulgate, which is an earlier text. So when they translated it, they put down instead in Romans, instead of putting down Nebuchadnezzar, he's like, oh, so you think you're greater than Lucifer? But it should have been, oh, you think you're greater than the morning star? Like, you think you're greater than, because later in Revelations, it refers to Jesus as the morning star. So it's supposed to say, oh, so you think you're better than Christ? you think you're better than Christ, you know? But they mistranslated it to Lucifer, and it kind of muddied the waters a little bit. And since Nebuchadnezzar did all these horrible things, they kind of attributed all his malice to Satan, and they called Lucifer Satan, when all around just a big misunderstanding. And the church runs with it and doesn't really take it back, and those that read it really don't know any better. They just know Lucifer bad. That's what they think. So they just go with that. And a lot of times the morning star is Venus, which is a representation of love. And the reason why it's the morning star is because in the east, you'll see that's the first star you see before the sun rises. And in the west, right, it's the last star you see as the sun sets. It's the morning star. And it heralds the sun. That's why it's called the morning star. So Lucifer, the light bearer, he bears the light. That sign means the sun's about to rise, the sun's coming. I think you muted yourself.
Yeah, it's probably good that they're not hearing my gasping and like, what? Whoa.
He is in ancient Greek, Venus is known as like Aphrodite, symbol of love. Romans, Venus, love. It's only in the West that we say, call the morning star Lucifer. Like it's some bad thing, when it's the heralding of the sun.
Do you know? I don't remember. Do you know when Nebuchadnezzar was in power? What
I
time?
don't, because there was, I think, two or three kings by that name. I think they were named after each other, so I'm not sure which one it was. But I believe the verse is, I was going to look it up. I'm pretty sure it's Romans 12:6. Could be off on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the right verse.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. I looked up Nebuchadnezzar and I totally spelled it wrong. Right.
It's so hard to spell.
Um, and then I put in Lucifer to to ensure like we're getting the right one. It looks like it might be the second Nebuchadnezzar. Isaiah 14:17. But yeah, I'll look up you said Romans 6 too. Romans 12:6, you said?
I thought it was Romans 12:6, but no.
Yeah, in the Old Testament, Isaiah referred to the king of Babylon, most probably Nebuchadnezzar, as a bright morning star, Isaiah 14:12. This comes from the Babylonian custom of calling a dying king Halel, best translated as day star, son of the dawn. How art thou? Oh, King James Version.
King James also wrote a book on demonology.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as well as he heavily edited the Bible as well, but
Yeah.
he
How?
wrote a book on demonology.
Oh, I have a question for that actually. I'm gonna recite this, Isaiah 14:12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O day star, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground that didst lay low the nations? I put in the American Standard Version, but it still has the art thou in it. I did, yeah, this is actually a question. I'm curious of your perspective and what you've learned because it's been a while. It's been a while since I've opened a Bible. I'm not gonna lie. I have a New Testament that I look every now and then for inspiration. But
Mhm.
from what you've learned about the Bible in your own research, what's the accuracy, the inaccuracy of the Bible? How does it help you? How may it not help you or help? the collective? How may it not help the collective? What's your overall perspective of how the Bible has been changed by language, etymology, culture, empires over time?
I found this, it says Isaiah 14:12, where it says morning star, but it used to say Lucifer, now it says light bringer. As you were saying, I think the Bible is a great book because if you read it, it mimics so many other religions and so many other beliefs, like from the Epic of Gilgamesh to like Catholics have the 14 stations of the cross or the 14 trials that Jesus went through. If in Egypt they have Osiris was cut into 14 pieces, and you can see those little parallels throughout so many different religions, so many different stories. So the Bible just kind of takes all that and sums it up into one book that, or well, the Bible is made of many books, but I think in many ways it was a huge detriment to the way that they did it, though, because it was put out through the Council of Nicaea for political reasons. They edited it for their own greed, their own reasons to stay in power. Whereas they had such a great opportunity to bring all these beliefs together and say, hey, look at all the similarities we have, look at all the look all these amazing things that we as humanity have collected. And instead you get power hungry people that just want to be gatekeepers when even the Bible, you know, Christ says to for heaven look within. You don't need a church, you don't need religion, you need to look within. And I think that's really true, especially reading the Bible. You can sit at home and read the Bible and get so much from it. It's great to have people that share their own interpretations as well. Like, my interpretations aren't perfect, they're flawed. So is the next person's. And through understanding and cohesion coming together, we get to learn from each other and learn from people's experiences or what they get from it. And that's kind of, as I mentioned before, kind of the nature of esotericism, looking beyond surface level. You get to see other people's perspective and other people's views. I don't think that everything should be taken so literally, because if you take everything literally and one thing doesn't come through, it all falls apart. Whereas if you look at things more in a parable sort of way and more of an inner understanding, then you get to understand that, okay, this might not have happened the way that it said, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't still have value. It doesn't have relevance. It still has meaning. Whereas if you take something literally and it turns out to not literally be true, then your foundation is just broken and you feel lost. Whereas if you just take an understanding of it, you just have a better foundation within your own faith. So I think the way that the Bible was used politically was just horrible. But at the same time, I think that if people can get past the dogma of it to actually understand the teachings of it and see how it relates to other religions and other beliefs, it can come together. The world becomes so much more rich.
It's beautiful.
Okay.
I'm going to turn on the light of the room because it just got dark. So just a second. And it's amazing that I get to meet people who are really really purpose driven
Hmm.
and also seeking the same thing, which you feel very open, you feel very open and loving in regards to accepting people and their different truths and perspectives. So it's great. Like it's like confirmation. Like
Yeah.
I get confirmation. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm on the right path because I'm magnetizing people who are also open and like it confirms that I'm doing the right thing in my personal the right
Mhm.
thing in my personal life because now I have now I'm like I'm sitting with people who also see the power behind being open-minded and open-hearted. So yeah, it's awesome. It's really
Yeah.
cool.
And as we were discussing, being open-minded about when you're reading things like the Bible, being open to do different perspectives, it just really helps unify people rather than drive them away. You doing that on a platform really, it really helps humanity, like as a whole, because even, years down the road, this will still be there, the way you bring people together, the information that you have people share. It's still going to be there. And it's amazing to have that on record and recorded for people to see. Lucifer is a symbol of more empowerment, wisdom, and connects to love, Venus, morning star, heralds the sun. But there was actually a bishop by the name of Lucifer. He was a strong opponent of something called in early Christianity was really muddied, and that's why they had the councils to kind of say, okay, these are the books we're going. There was a Christian sect called Arianism, which was basically they said that, oh, Christ could not be divine because if he was the son of the Father, he could not coexist with the Father if he was of the Father. So they basically denied Christ's divinity. And the bishop Lucifer, he said, no, that's not, no, Christ is divine. He can't go and say that he wasn't. I think recently where the last pope, they were opening up um, the doorway and they people learned about, oh, Lucifer has a tomb, and they were freaking out about that. And it's like, well, yeah, Lucifer was a bishop. It's not They're not opening up the tomb for the devil. It was, there's a bishop named Lucifer, and he actually wanted to make sure that people stuck to you know that Christ was divine. Um, they believe that yes, he was two parts. One part was human, one part was divine, but he was born without the division and without confusion. That was their whole thing with him being divine, is the fact that he was born without the division that we're born with. When we're born, we're separated male, female, left brain, right brain. You we're hit with these dualities, and they're saying that Christ was able to um, cohabitate both his mortal body and his divine essence into one vessel. And that's something that the Bishop Lucifer really pushed for, is yes, he was divine because he was born without the confusion and division as others are. But yeah, that's where I was going with the whole Lucifer thing and the seal and how it connects planet Venus. Of course, Venus is planetary aspect of love.
Oh
Love,
yes.
you really have unity, and all those aspects of the human potential. you know, they can all be united through love. I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, love and unity, but it's right there, you know. But that's what I have on Lucifer. I just don't want him to be always confused with halal shakar, or the Hebrew Satan, or Satan, Samael. I don't want Lucifer to be confused with Satan, because that's not who Lucifer represents.
It's fascinating because, um, yeah, because it's been heavily ingrained in at least Roman Catholicism from my experience of Lucifer being Satan. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I, I still see people, or hear people refer to Lucifer and Satan as if they're the same being. It's like, no, and if you really want to get technical with it, Satan may not actually be a real being, but the essence of bad that humans do can be all attributed to Satan, whereas everything good is of God, or the absolute love, unity.
It almost sounds like humans created quote unquote evil. It almost sounds like we just needed some sort of identity to put that essence into and make it seem like it's not ours when
Need a
if it
scapegoat. Yeah.
oh, a goat.
Mhm.
Yeah. Satan.
Yeah. And that's really our animalistic nature is, like they say, you're born in sin, and it's like, well, you're born in this animalistic nature of duality. You have good, you have evil, and we needed a scapegoat. And so we kind of attributed everything evil to one being, when really Satan's fall from grace. Like, it's kind of like we choose to come down into this. Satan or Lucifer's fall from grace, I kind of think of, like, it, it's kind of a choice. The story of the prodigal son, where you go off, do your own thing, and then you come back, you come home. You see the torch on top, on the very top, the horns, the goat head with the pentagram. Then you see he has kind of a masculine body, but female breasts and wings. Instead of a phallus, he has the staff of Hermes, or the caduceus, with the rising serpents, like the Ida and Pingala going through the body. He's sitting on top of a sphere, or like Earth. In the background, it's kind of a watery substance, like he's on land in water. The wings represent air, and then he has a torch up above. So you have all the elements. You have water, earth, air, and fire. Each one has its own significance. The torch represents light, or basically divinity transcending or moving above the goat head, which the goat head represents our animalistic instincts, our lower base self, all the things that kind of makes us human. Like, we are, as humans, basically animals, but we have that spark of divinity within us that connects us to the divine. So the torch represents a union with the divine enlightenment, and that's purposely put above the goat head to represent rising above animalistic instincts for the betterment. So when people say it's evil, what they're looking at is the goat head basically and the pentagram, and each part of the pentagram represents a different element. But if you notice, the pentagram is facing upward. That's a very important aspect because the upward point is spirit. So you have spirit on top, where Satanists, they use the inverted one with spirit on the bottom. But you can see by this, you have it pointed upwards, which is a very important distinction. This symbol was originally created by Eliphas Levi, his book Dogmas and Rituals of High Magic in 1856. But it wasn't translated to English until like sometime like 1900. I want to say 1904, but I could be wrong on that. It could be a little bit later. But you can see on his arms, one says solve and the other one says coagula, which is Latin. Solve is basically means to dissolve, and coagula means basically to bind together, coagulate. The whole thing is speaks on duality. He has one hand pointing upwards, one downwards, as above, so below. You have the light moon on top, the dark moon on the bottom. The whole thing is, as Manly P. Hall puts it, a perfect equilibrium of opposites. It's just the whole thing is an alchemical statement, basically. But as I was saying, with his arms, the solve and the coagula, it's telling you take everything apart, refine it, and then bring it back together. That's what alchemy is a refining process. And in life, that's that's all life is. Life as a whole is a refining process. We all learn, we all develop and grow. We aren't the same person we were a year ago, or at least, we shouldn't be stagnant. We should always be learning. We should always be striving to do better. That's something I wanted to point out is this symbol always gets demonized as being satanic when actually the pentagram on the head is the exact opposite symbol that Satanists use. And it's all about betterment, to refine yourself through the duality of opposites. You tear apart everything to bring together a more refined version of yourself. An interesting tidbit about Baphomet too is that in the 1300s with the Knights Templar, they were being questioned, well, not questioned, interrogated, tortured, everything. And one of the questions was, who is Baphomet? And, they all gave different variations of who Baphomet was because they were being tortured. They just made up whatever was in their head. They likely didn't know what they were talking about, what they were referring to. They were just saying whatever would get them to stop being tortured. But there's no scholarly consensus on who they were referring to when they were asking who Baphomet was. Like the scholars don't even know what that meant. Like, who is Baphomet? It wasn't until Eliphas Levi came and created this symbol that there was an actual Baphomet. But a lot of people think that what they were referring to is an Aramaic name of Abu Fiamma, which is a father of understanding. That would be what I think is probably the closest thing to what they were asking is, the Knights Templar, they were trying to charge them for heresy. They didn't want to pay the king basically didn't want to pay the debt to the Knights Templar, the church. So what better way than to proclaim heresy? Yeah. I just wanted to point out that a lot of people say Baphomet is a satanic symbol when it's the exact opposite.
Yeah, I noticed that, you know, the thing that's sitting on Baphomet and the thing that like the snakes are around.
The staff, the caduceus, and in the East they have this concept of on the left and right you have the Ida and the Pingala, which is two energy centers, and the snakes coiling around. You have the spinal column, which would be the rod, the whole Jesus thing. Jesus died at the age of 33. We have 33 vertebrae, caduceus, the staff of Hermes.
And it's interesting too, so the breasts of a woman, because it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that still it's nurturing creation and a reflection of kind of the inner self too. I think Baphomet looks mostly like a guy, except for the breast. So is it the duality between men and women and the female aspect of creation?
Yeah, it's the duality of Manly P. Hall stated it's the perfect equilibrium of opposites. It's alchemical fusion of opposites of male and female together. You have as above, so below, with the divine and the material. You have all the elements, which you break apart every aspect of human nature and refine it, bring it back together, and you rise further than you were before.
And the wings, are the wings like the wings of a particular animal?
Uh, Not as far as I know. The wings represent the element of air, and they're showing elevation, ascension.
And then the feet, I wonder, and this is only these are all only my interpretations. So the feet, which are hooves, it kind of, because it does relate to the goat, it reminds me our animal instincts binds us to the physical reality of walking on foot, of walking this physical reality, being connected with our instincts, which is why they have hooves. Definitely has hooves.
You can interpret it that way. I'm not specifically sure if that was the intent behind it, but that is definitely a good interpretation of it. I really like it. Eliphas Levi also had what he called the four pillars of the Magi, which are to know, to dare, to will, and to be silent. And he said to know these four things four times over. I, I don't want to misquote him, but those are the four pillars of understanding is to know, to will, to dare, and to be silent, like reflect. And I find it interesting that he also created Baphomet, which really it all kind of comes together if you connect the dots. That's why I like esotericism.
And then also, isn't this a mudra that you mentioned, or like you mentioned mudras? Like, isn't this one?
That's a symbol for as above, so below. The statement, the Hermetic principle of as above, so below, or the above is like that which is below. And the only true Hermetic text is from Hermes Trismegistus, which off the top of my head, I don't remember the year, but it was like 300 BC or something crazy long time ago. It was written. But the Kabbalion is a different text that has those principles in it.
How will understanding esotericism help us diffuse division among groups of people who are devoutly pious or, quote, extremely religious, unquote? And then potentially you can branch into common theological misconceptions and or misinformation that are worth publicly debunking from your perspective, which I guess you could say, how would this help us diffuse division among extremely pious religious people?
More understanding rather than judgment. That's really what it boils down to. A lot of people want to be holier than thou, and take that type of attitude when really we got to recognize we're all in this crazy world together. We're all walking each other home. You know, it, you don't need to look for outside validation. You have it within yourself. So, among the people that are extremely pious, extremely religious, there's a difference between being pious and being a zealot. And really, zealotry is what gets you a lot of where a lot of bad comes from in religion is following others. And like I spoke about earlier, taking things literal instead of more parable, and learning things and adapting them to your own life to make you a better person rather than trying to force that onto others. Like many things I say may be correct, they may resonate with someone, or they might get someone to look at something differently, and I may get some information wrong. But either way, the point is to get people to think for themselves, to follow themselves, to find what speaks to them so that they can improve themselves. And when you deal with people that are zealots and follow one leader, one person that they think is my dad could beat up your dad type of attitude. It's just it's silly in the end because we all we're all in this together. So I think esotericism can help diffuse a lot of tension by understanding what we have in common rather than our differences. Even in Satanism, when the spirit is pointed downwards, they still follow the principle of you shouldn't harm others. Like that's a big no-no, like even to them. And in no way do I endorse any particular teaching or anything, but it's just understanding of their views, understanding of others' views, and kind of seeing where the other person is coming from, but know what is in your heart. And what's in your heart should be unconditional. But I think that kind of sums up your question.
Oh, I mean, very well. Not no grading or anything, but yeah, I think the message definitely came across. Definitely. How did you consciously begin seeking the truth? Will you share your journey and how it has empowered you into the person you are today?
I grew up Lutheran and became an acolyte, and I realized, that's not the only one religion. There's people that follow different religions, and how can an all-loving God send people that were born with a different belief system to hell, basically. And I, I, I just didn't see the truth in that, so I wanted to find the truth. And the more you dig, the more you realize how much in common other religions and beliefs have that connect to what you're taught. So that's how I consciously became aware and started seeking the truth, is by realizing the lies.
Do you mind me asking if this is okay with you sharing what age you were when you kind of began connecting the dots, as you say?
I was very young, I 12, 13 years old. I started when I was going through the process of becoming an acolyte. We had to actually read through the Bible and dig deeper, and that's you start to question things, and that's pretty much how my journey to start seeking the truth.
It's funny, you ended at truth, like you ended at the word truth. But I think you were completing it, you're summarizing it, but is there anything else you'd like to say in regards to how you began seeking the truth and during the age that you were?
um that summed it up pretty well. I was about 13 years old when I started to become an acolyte because I wanted to leave the church, and my parents wouldn't allow me to until so I told them, hey, look, if I become an acolyte, if I go through that process, will you allow me to leave the church? And they said, yeah, you don't have to go to church anymore if you do this. So it was like a 2 year process, 2 or 3 years. It started around 12 or so, 11 or 12. I started, and around 12, 13, I think I completed when I was about 14 years old, 14 or 15. So that's when I was able to actually leave the church and not have to follow someone else's teachings. I was able to learn on my own.
What do you hope for and or look forward to seeing reflected in the upcoming years? This could be in your life, in the collective, with the world we see today, based on today's worldly events and common collective trends.
What I really look forward to is more unity. Like, I think with the rise of AI, if people use it properly as more of a tool and not as a like a cheat code, basically, but use it more as a tool, then it can work for the betterment of mankind. And so I really look forward to, I mean, whatever life brings, right? There's I heard Dr. Robert Gilbert tell the story of a man walking, and I think this was an avatar of Krishna, or it might have been Christ, I'm not sure, but he was walking and his apostles were following him, and there was a dead dog decomposing on the side of the road, and the apostles were, didn't say anything, but they were like thinking about how bad it stunk, how gross it looked, and everything like that. And the the figure, the person they were following, turned to them and said, "Did you notice how what good teeth that dog had? It's like through all that bad, he found the positive to look at, whereas everyone else was focusing on the negative." So I really look forward and hope for that people start noticing more good things. And, you can't ignore the bad, but you can recognize it for what it is and appreciate the good. It's kind of like the essence of Wu Wei, going with the flow and just being present, not trying to go against the grain. Things are going to happen that's out of our control, but how we view those things and how we perceive them and how we actively participate and act upon them is all up to us as individuals. And if we as a collective act in our highest nature, then more good will come out of it in this world. Like I said, I'm not perfect. I can get things wrong. And, but hopefully things that really resonate with people and really help people open their eyes or get any type of confirmation to what they've already known. I hope it reaches them so that they can kind of feel that validation and feel seen and heard.
This has been a beautiful, absolutely beautiful conversation.
Mm.
I feel, yeah, I I personally feel a lot more enlightened, just from learning about these new things that you brought to the table, and also from our personal conversations on the sidelines, not part of the recording.
Mhm.
It's really, yeah, it's really great to meet you, and I hope that hope to have you on again, to talk about other things that we mentioned on the sidelines. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for your time and your effort and your attention into detail in regards to talking about esotericism and symbolism.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I really appreciate what you're doing because it gives people voices so that they can speak on, what they feel to be true or what they know to be true. And, I think you're putting a lot of good out there, and it's really commendable. And I really appreciate what you do. Love to come back sometime.